Ladies and gentlemen, let me ask you a question. What are you afraid of today? What keeps you awake at night? Is it your finances, your health, your family, the future? Worry is a silent thief. It creeps into our hearts, whispers doubts into our minds, and strangles the very life out of our souls. It tells us that we are alone, that no one cares, and that the weight of the world's to carry. But I am here to tell you that is a lie. You were never meant to carry the burdens of life alone. You were never meant to live in fear and anxiety. There is a greater power, a greater love, a greater presence that is calling you today. And that presence says, trust me. I urge you, do not walk away from this message. Because by the time we are done, you will see that worry is a choice, and trust is the door to freedom. We live in a world where fear is broadcasted every day. Turn on the news, scroll through social media, talk to your neighbor. Fear is everywhere. And if we are not careful, we begin to believe that the world is out of control, that our problems are too big, that the storm is too great. But the truth is this: God is still in control. The Bible tells us over and over again to do not fear. Not once, not twice, but over 365 times. That means there is a message for you every single day of the year. Stop worrying and start trusting. Look at the birds of the air. Do they worry about their food? Look at the flowers in the field. Do they worry about their beauty? No, because they know that their Creator will provide. And if He cares for the smallest creatures, how much more does He care for you? I want you to take a moment right now and think about the biggest worry in your life. Name it. Feel its weight. Now I want you to ask yourself, has worrying ever solved it? Has fear ever brought you peace? Has anxiety ever given you rest? The answer is no. And yet, the moment you choose to trust, everything changes. Trust is a powerful force. It shifts your focus from the problem to the provider. It moves your heart from panic to peace. It reminds you that you are not alone, and you never have been. Today, I challenge you. Lay it down there. Haka. Surrender it. Let it go. Stop trying to control what was never meant for you to carry. Because when you do, you will find that trust is not weakness. It is the greatest strength you will ever know. Worry is the enemy of faith. It is a silent force that creeps into the heart and mind, slowly eroding confidence in God's promises. It starts as a small concern, a fleeting thought, but if left unchecked, it grows into a consuming fire that robs peace and drains strength. Worry whispers lies, making people believe that they are alone, that their problems are too great, and that there is no solution. It blinds them to the truth that God is in control, that He is faithful, and that He has already made a way. Worry does not change circumstances, nor does it solve problems. Instead, it magnifies them, making them seem larger than they are, creating a storm within the soul that leads to fear, doubt, and despair. Faith, on the other hand, is the opposite of worry. Faith sees beyond the present struggle and holds on to the truth that God is working, even when nothing seems to be happening. Faith stands firm when worry says to give up. Faith trusts in God's timing when worry demands immediate answers. But worry and faith cannot coexist. When worry takes root, it chokes out faith, replacing confidence with fear and trust with uncertainty. This is why worry is the enemy of faith. It does not just weaken it, it actively fights against it, causing believers to lose sight of God's goodness and power. Throughout Scripture, God commands His people not to worry. He says, do not be anxious about anything, because He knows that worry leads to spiritual paralysis. Worry stops people from stepping out in faith, from believing in miracles, from trusting in God's provision. It causes hesitation, doubt, and even disobedience. When the Israelites stood before the promised land, worry kept them from entering. They feared the giants, they doubted God's ability to deliver them, and as a result, they wandered in the wilderness for 40 years. Their worry blinded them to the fact that God had already prepared their victory. The same is true today. Many people miss out on God's blessings because they let worry control them. They are afraid to step out, to trust, to believe. They let fear of the unknown hold them back from the future God has planned. But worry is a thief. It steals joy, robs hope, and keeps people bound in chains of fear. It makes mountains out of molehills, turns small problems into insurmountable obstacles, and causes people to doubt God's love. But here is the good news. Worry does not have to win. Faith has the power to overcome it. Faith chooses to trust in God's promises even when circumstances seem uncertain. Faith refuses to give in to fear, knowing that God is bigger than any problem. Faith reminds the heart that God is a provider, a protector, and a deliverer. The moment a person chooses faith over worry, everything changes. Peace replaces anxiety. Hope replaces fear. Strength replaces weakness. Worry is the enemy of faith, but faith is the victory that overcomes worry. Trust is the antidote to fear. Fear is a powerful force that grips the heart, paralyzes the mind, and keeps people from stepping into the fullness of God's promises. It is the voice that whispers, what if everything falls apart? What if I fail? What if I am not? And fear thrives on uncertainty, feeding on doubt and magnifying the unknown. It creates scenarios that may never happen, making them feel real and immediate. It steals peace, destroys confidence, and replaces faith with anxiety. But trust is stronger than fear. Trust silences fear's voice and reminds the soul that there is a greater power at work, a power that never fails, never abandons, and never loses control. Trust is not about ignoring reality or pretending that difficulties do not exist. It is about choosing to believe that God is greater than any problem, any storm, or any uncertainty. It is standing firm when everything seems to be shaking, knowing that even when circumstances are out of control, God is still in control. Trust is not built on human understanding because human understanding is limited, fragile, and easily shaken. Trust is built on God's unchanging character, on His faithfulness, and on the truth that He has never failed and He never will. Fear says a what if, but trust says even if. Even if the storm comes, even if the answer is delayed, even if the road is difficult, trust declares that God is still good, still faithful, still present. One of the greatest examples of trust in the face of fear is seen in the life of David. When he stood before Goliath, the entire army of Israel was paralyzed by fear. They saw the giant heard his threats and believed they were powerless against him. But David saw something different. He saw not the size of the enemy, but the power of his God. He trusted not in his own ability, but in the one who had delivered him before and would deliver him again. Where others saw defeat, David saw victory, not because the battle was easy, but because his trust was in the Lord. Trust does not remove challenges, but it changes the way challenges are faced. Fear makes people run from battles, but trust gives them the courage to stand. Fear makes people doubt God's goodness, but trust reminds them that He is always working. Fear looks at the problem, but trust looks at the promise. When trust takes root in the heart, fear begins to lose its grip. The circumstances may not change immediately, but the heart does. Anxiety is replaced with peace. Doubt is replaced with confidence. Worry is replaced with rest, because trust is not just a feeling. It is a choice to believe, to surrender, and to hold on to the truth that God is faithful. No matter how strong fear may seem, trust will always be stronger. God's promises never fail. From the very beginning of time, God has spoken promises over His people, and not a single one has ever been broken. His word stands unshaken, unmoved by time, circumstances, or human failure. Yet in moments of hardship, doubt begins to creep in. People begin to question, will God really come through for me? They look at their situations and wonder if His promises still apply to them. But the truth remains, what God has spoken, He will fulfill. What He has promised, He will bring to pass. His faithfulness is not dependent on human emotions, nor is it weakened by the difficulties of life. God does not change. He is the same yesterday, today, and forever, and His promises remain as sure as the rising sun. The Bible is filled with examples of God's faithfulness to His promises. When He told Abraham that he would be the father of many nations, it seemed impossible. Abraham was old, his wife Sarah was barren, and every natural circumstance pointed to failure. But God had spoken, and no obstacle was too great for His power. Though Abraham had to wait, the promise was fulfilled in God's perfect time. When the Israelites stood before the Red Sea with Pharaoh's army behind them, fear must have gripped their hearts. But God had promised to deliver them, and He did exactly that, parting the waters and making a way where there was none. Over and over again, history reveals one undeniable truth: God does not fail. Yet many struggle to believe in His promises because they focus more on their problems than on His power. When hardships come, they allow fear and worry to cloud their faith. They base their trust on what they see instead of on what God has said. But faith is not about seeing. It is about believing even when circumstances suggest otherwise. Faith holds on to God's word even in the darkest moments. It clings to His promises with unwavering confidence, knowing that He is not a man that He should lie. Every promise in Scripture is a reminder that He is trustworthy, that He is working, and that He will never abandon His people. God has promised peace in the storm, strength in the battle, provision in need, and comfort in sorrow. He has promised to never leave nor forsake those who trust in Him. He has promised that His plans are good, that His love is unshakable, and that His grace is sufficient. The problem is never with God's promises. It is with human impatience and doubt. People often want answers immediately, forgetting that God works in His perfect timing. They grow weary in waiting and begin to believe the lie that God has forgotten them. But He has not. His silence is not His absence, and His delays are not His denials. He is always faithful, always present, and always true to His word. No matter how uncertain life may seem, one truth remains: God's promises never fail. Your burdens were never meant for you. Life is full of challenges, struggles, and worries that weigh heavily on the heart. People carry fears about their future, anxieties about their families, and pressures from their jobs. They walk through life with the weight of past mistakes, regrets, and unfulfilled expectations pressing down on them. The burdens of life become so heavy that they drain joy, steal peace, and leave many feeling overwhelmed and exhausted. But here is the truth: God never intended for you to carry these burdens alone. You were not created to live in constant worry and fear. You are not designed to bear the weight of the world on your shoulders. Instead, you are called to trust, to surrender, and to place every burden in the hands of the one who is strong enough to carry them all. Many people try to handle everything on their own. They believe they must figure out every solution, fix every problem, and find their own way through difficult situations. They think that if they just try harder, work longer, or worry more, they can somehow control the outcome. But the more they strive in their own strength, the heavier the burden becomes. It crushes them, leaving them exhausted, anxious, and hopeless. This is not how God intended life to be. He never asked you to carry the weight of your struggles alone. Instead, He invites you to cast every care upon Him because He cares for you. He longs to take the burdens that are too heavy for you to carry. He is ready to give you rest, to lighten your load, and to replace your anxiety with His peace. Jesus Himself said, "Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." This is not just a comforting statement, it is a promise. A promise that if you come to Him, if you lay down your worries, He will take them from you. He does not promise that life will be without troubles, but He does promise that you do not have to face them alone. When you trust Him with your burdens, you begin to walk in the freedom He intended for you. You begin to experience the peace that comes from knowing that you are not in control. He is. And He is far more capable of handling your problems than you are. Yet many hesitate to surrender their burdens because they feel the need to be in control. They hold on to their worries, fearing that if they let go, things will fall apart. But the truth is, the tighter you hold on to your burdens, the more they consume you. Surrender is not weakness. It is recognizing that God's strength is far greater than your own. When you place your trust in Him, when you truly let go, you will find a peace that surpasses all understanding. You were never meant to carry the weight of the world. You were never meant to live in worry and fear. Let go, trust, and watch how God carries what was never meant for you to bear. Faith in action brings peace. Many people talk about trust, but few truly live it out. They say they believe in God's plan, yet they continue to worry. They say they trust His promises, yet they still try to control everything themselves. But real faith is not just words, it is action. It is a daily decision to surrender, to obey, and to walk in confidence even when the path ahead is unclear. Faith is not passive. It is not simply wishing for the best and hoping things turn out well. Faith is active trust. It is making the choice every single day to put God first, to rely on His guidance and to rest in His promises even when circumstances suggest otherwise. When faith is put into action, fear loses its grip and peace begins to take over. The world teaches that peace comes from having everything figured out. It says that once problems are solved, finances are secure, and the future is certain, then peace will follow. But that is not true peace. That is temporary relief, dependent on external circumstances. The peace that comes from faith is different. It does not depend on perfect conditions. It does not require everything to be in place. Instead, it is a deep, unshakable assurance that God is in control no matter what. It is the kind of peace that allowed Daniel to remain calm in the lion's den. The kind of peace that let Paul and Silas sing praises while chained in prison. It is the peace that Jesus had when He slept in the middle of a raging storm. This peace does not come from the absence of trouble. It comes from the presence of trust. Faith in action means stepping out even when fear tries to hold you back. It means choosing to pray instead of panic, to worship instead of worry, to move forward instead of standing still in fear. Faith says, I do not have to see the whole picture to trust that God is leading me. It does not wait for circumstances to be perfect before believing. It does not hesitate when challenges arise. It moves forward with confidence, knowing that God has already made a way. Too many people miss out on peace because they refuse to take this step. They want proof before they trust. They want to see the results before they believe. But true faith moves first. It trusts before it sees. And when it does, peace follows. Many wonder why they lack peace, why anxiety still rules their hearts even when they claim to have faith. The answer is simple. Faith that is not acted upon cannot bring peace. It is like holding a life vest but refusing to put it on. Faith must be lived out. It must be practiced in daily life, in small moments, in big decisions, in every area of the heart. The more faith is exercised, the stronger it grows. And as it grows, so does peace. Fear fades, worry disappears, and a deep, lasting sense of calm takes its place. This is the power of true faith in action. It does not just hope for peace, it walks in it.